serious issue and will be letting us know about the drive-through recovery resource event to be held at the centers on September 26th from 10 to 1. So tune in Friday the 11th at 8:35 a.m. for mental news that you can use from the centers and Marion County Children's Alliance and your friends here at WOCA, The Source.
September is Blood Cancer Awareness Month. Tuesday the 8th at 10:50 a.m., Dr. Karan Jacobson, Medical Director of the Immune Effector Cell Therapy Program at Dana-Farber Cancer Institute, will be Adam's guest to share background information on blood cancers as well as new types of treatment options. This medical information is brought to you by the Gill & Company, Dr. Jacobson, and your friends here at WOCA. Again, be sure to tune in Tuesday at 8 at 10:50 a.m. WOCA, your source for news and information.
Finally, the Cowboys are back in Ocala. September 4th and 5th, 7:30 nightly. Don't miss the 38th annual Ocala Shrine Rodeo. Broncs, Bulls, and Bullfighters. Two big shows as Cowboys ride to help children walk. For tickets and information, check out OcalaShrineRodeo.com. September 4th and 5th, Broncs, Bulls, and Bullfighters. Don't miss the 38th annual Ocala Shrine Rodeo.
Broadcasting from the Paddock Mall Studios, this is WOCA, Ocala, Gainesville, The Villages, 1370 AM, 96.3 FM, The Source.
On the first and third Wednesday mornings each month at 9:05 a.m., Robert Colin with On Top of the World will be our guest as we learn all about the exciting lifestyle and new home choices available at Ocala's premier adult active community, On Top of the World. From time to time, Robert will bring guests, and you're sure to enjoy our little chats. After all, you deserve the world, and we bring it to you.
When it really counts, depend on The Source for the latest weather updates, keeping you ahead of the storm. 96.3 FM, 1370 AM, The Source.
Sunny and humid today with a high of 90 to 94. Tomorrow and Sunday, humid with a mix of sun and clouds. A thunderstorm around in the afternoon. High tomorrow 92 to 94. High Sunday 89 to 93. Monday, a mix of clouds and sunshine. A thunderstorm in parts of the area in the afternoon. High 90 to 92. Tuesday, some sunshine, followed by clouds, high 88 to 93. From the Florida Weather Center, I'm Brian May.
WOCA.
You're listening to AM Ocala Live, 96.3 FM, 1370 AM. As we're broadcasting to you, guess where? That's right, Paddock Mall, streaming live, YouTube Live, WOCA, The Source Radio, 1037, making our way towards the 11 o'clock hour as we're rounding out our show, as we do on Fridays with Ocala Magazine. Fellow Glassman and Jesse, I always forget your last name. Miller. Easy. Yeah, that's a hard one, right? As we got you in the studio today, welcome. This Friday show as we're making our way towards Labor Day weekend. As we were just talking a little off air there, it's nice to look forward to something, but at the same time, there has been a little bit, there's like this, it's like a little, like something's off when it comes to a holiday. There's like a, yeah, and it's like a, yeah, okay.
Yeah,
like
should I go? I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
not
like,
gonna go. Are we gonna go? I don't know.
It's that feeling when when my parents growing up. This is funny. It's always when it was like a long time before they had like gone out to eat or anything. So it'd be like a Friday night coming up, and they had planned on it. So mom's excited, but dad's a little And then by the end of it, mom's like, well, where do you want to go eat? And he's like, I don't care, you pick. And she's like, well, how about here? And he's like, that's fine. Then she goes, well, how about here? And he's like, that's fine too. Well, how about here? And then by the end of it, they're like, just forget it. And they stay home. That is the analogy that I'm giving to holidays this year.
Just forget
the
it. COVID effect.
Just forget it. I don't want to wear a mask. Just forget it. Yeah.
I think introverts.
Yeah. Something like that, right? Introverts.
Where it's just easier to
Labor
stay
Day
in and not deal with things.
You're supposed to be outside at the beach, barbecuing, that type of stuff.
Yeah.
I got the little guy this weekend.
Yeah.
It's like, it's kind of sad. Like, you want to take him to the beach, but then you're like, there's going to be so many people. Are they going to come out? Are the people going to come out?
Right.
I like
Yeah.
You
I
like
like
the
the beach. That's what I said. I said earlier, and they mentioned that for, like we said, the lowest gas prices, I think, since 2004 for this Labor Day holiday. As like that's some encouragement to get out there and go on a little road trip and do something fun. But then also they brought in real quick for a nice paragraph from the CDC to say, hey, hold on a minute.
Yeah.
Don't be irresponsible. And it's like at the end of the day, to sit at home by yourself again in the darkness and it's hot. How about this? Go put your feet in the quartz crystal sand. Go ahead and soak in some vitamin D from the sun. Go ahead and let your skin exfoliate from the saltwater sea. And at the end of the day, that's probably a little bit better
That's
for
healthy.
you.
For sure.
You can still do the distancing and all that.
During the quarantine, it was like I just went to the beach. It was like at the end of the quarantine, I just couldn't take it at the end, and we went to the beach and we just stayed out on the sand for a day, and it was like.
Yeah.
It was like it just defuses you and kind of brings you back to baseline.
Yeah, it is incredible. I think that's one thing, though, we can say, and I know with how much you guys have worked on the magazine and been dealing with folks in the community, everybody has this little different sense of perspective and appreciation for everything now. We've discussed that a little bit.
Yeah.
So like you said, just that day at the beach, it's like, well, man, this is monumental. This is huge. This is huge.
That's true.
And,
And that's funny you say that because this is our issue for this month, and actually it comes out today. We actually mailed out yesterday, but it's the arts issue, and we give a lot of credit to Jessie for this issue because she's kind of she's our graphic designer, which is art, but she's also our artist, if you will, in the magazine. But she came up with this concept with the photographer, and it's so cool. And I know that they talked about it in the last week, but it's just so neat how they did it and then put it on there. And then they had a video when they did the art castle, and it was like you felt the vibe of the energy when it was happening. It was just,
Is that right?
It was really amazing. So we're proud of it, and it goes out today, and you can find it, in all the distribution locations today.
Absolutely, and we had on last week all of the artists.
The artists that were involved there, not the one that painted on her, but
He went on a trip, or we would have got him.
Yeah, even those events are more special. Anything that we're doing right now is more special. Like we're saying a day at the beach or anything else. I think people are like, "Oh, thank you for being here with this art." And we're like, we're always here. It's like our job. I mean, or it's whatever. But anyway, it's kind of how. I mean, whatever shows you watch. I remember like whatever Stephen Colbert or whomever. But people are just like, "Thank you for being on and entertaining us. Like we need this. Like somehow like everything normal. We're grateful for in a different way." I think.
Yeah, I mean, it made you appreciate everything, really. It's, if it's like, hey, how you doing? I'm like, well, I'm healthy, so if everything else is pretty much.
Everything else is garbage,
Yeah,
but I'm healthy.
pretty much.
I'm healthy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
thank you.
that's what my mom says.
Excuse me,
above ground. And, she was doing this way before COVID.
Yeah.
And so now I'm like, you know what? It's kind of picked up what she says.
There's a guy like that, too. This is years ago. Old Reggie Barnesdale. He'd be like, hey, how you doing? And you could expect his answer to be like, glad to be amongst the living.
Yeah.
Glad he was old Southern boy. Glad to be amongst the living.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
You know what, though? It is true.
And that one day you see him and he's like, glad to just be floating as a phantom. You're like, wait a minute. I see you. Does anybody else see you?
Are you a ghost?
glad to be floating as a phantom.
You're amongst the living, but are you?
You know what? And that brings me back to something us three talked about. It's as easy to do as a caveman.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but it just is.
So easy. Caveman can do it.
Caveman can do it,
Yep. Absolutely.
Oh my goodness.
But as the art issue that you say is coming out and everything, and then talking last week like we did, I as much as we're talking about these changes in perspectives and everything, man, that's one of the things, and I asked that right at the end about like what that means, for creative thinking and everything else that comes through everything we've dealt with here so far.
I can say that, especially when we were only really quarantined for a few weeks here in Ocala, like mandated in home, right. But like LA and New York have been, all this time or whatever.
They were a lot longer.
And but so in those weeks, I was like, all right. I mean, I was still working because we could do the magazine from our computers at home and everything. So it wasn't like I had extra time per se.
Right,
but
right.
It did. I was at home, and it felt like I had extra time and downtime and whatever. And so I was like, okay, I should do some major projects. And I couldn't seem to do anything. And so anyway, I would go around online and talk, in different artist communities like you do. And I think there were several different reactions. Some people were doing more work and other people were like, I need to stop for a minute and not do and just let this be this pause or whatever. So I think creatives, artists, went in a lot of different directions. Yeah. Some big artists who can't tour have now made some really quiet music. That's maybe some of their best music. And whatever. And so, and I painted a big painting that had to do with COVID, and it's hanging now in the show. So I think everyone reacted differently. I mean, that's the thing with creativity, right? It's not
exactly right.
recipe, and you don't know what's going on.
Right. It's different for everyone.
And I would like to see how that different creativity kind of shapes some of the way things go in society. Because what I think when we look at certain decades, right? We always anticipate to say, and it always feels like history's told in decades. But when we think of the 1920s, we think of the Gatsby time look, right? The Frank Lloyd Wright, right? The flapper dresses and all that.
Yeah.
And as you move through each decade, it changes a little bit, right? So when we go back and I think of the 80s, like it was like this hodgepodge of.
But bubblegum, neon.
We went from orange, brown, and white colors that were like in the 70s to like we need to have neons and all this, right? So
Miami Vice, right?
Yeah, but it
the personality of the era,
right? But it put forward a different culture because you had musicians, right?
2020s.
And so in the 80s you had these musicians like between David Bowie and you mentioned like Miami Vice with the Miami look with the neons. It carried that kind of through a little bit, and it makes me wonder because like the 90s, I don't know if you noticed or not, it feels like the 90s were like everything was like more taupe and eggshell white and very soothing, and it's like, hey, it's the 90s, we're progressive.
And
it's almost like they were counter, balancing for the
exactly.
Yes.
And then it makes me wonder what then the rest of our decade will look like as this was affected so early on in it. It's changed the dynamic.
2020 is going to go as the worst year for the whole world. I mean, I don't think anyone, no matter where you live in the world, can say it hasn't been. So it's, I'll be happy.
Advertising changed right away. That's one of the harbingers of culture, right? Like you could see it, and they knew like immediately. So, for example, our magazine, we were. I don't know, whatever. When we were quarantined and everything hit, I can't remember what week we were in of the month, but we were close to. We had to scrap. Basically, what I'm saying is half
April.
of the concepts that we
had. The quarantine started in April, and then it was into May.
We couldn't take regular photo shoots all of a sudden.
Right.
We couldn't, and so we're like, scrap this cover and let's put, we put all these different pictures of all these people who were separate. From their own homes or from wherever, so that was so immediately, I guess, like the advertising and entertainment culture had to shift.
Yeah.
And you see it in all the ads that you see. And
you really do.
Now more than ever, you need to,
You're right. That's been a huge word.
There's a lot of
like
language.
How there's always a lingo.
In these uncertain times.
In these uncertain times.
And
more than ever. You're right.
Yeah.
And it's just over and over again.
And no matter what it is, I've noticed that now more than ever used to be some things that were relevant, and now it's anything. That's just how they lead into a sentence.
And at the end
we're in this together. I mean, we are. You realize how much you really are in all this shit together.
Yeah, globally too. Like how it affected the world, right?
So our culture is definitely shifting.
And I think that's funny too because like now more than ever.
Yeah.
The Lexus sales event is going on right now. And you're like,
it's not even.
In these,
I'm not buying an SC400.
In these unprecedented times, 5G is now out with AT&T.
Yes.
And that's what advertising.
They trick you. They get you for a minute.
I've seen a ton of front porch. We did some ourselves for fashion. Like we had a fashion spray. There have been several of our columns that we've had to just, for now, scrap. Like first for a while the restaurant thing. We couldn't go to restaurants for a while, so we couldn't even do that. And the fashion thing, like I said, we couldn't get with people to shoot for a couple of months, And so we were doing this. We did this like front door fashion thing, of what people were quarantining with. But I've seen a lot of photography trends about that too.
Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah. So there's like photography at a distance, or things like that. There's been a lot of out there.
Man, that's a full body shot. Yeah. Yeah. Usually it'd be a zoom in person.
Exactly. Yeah.
As you're talking about, like different for different artists and different people. Like when you're a business person, my phone just starts ringing and it just goes and it goes. During that 60-day period of that quarantine, it was literally, I had no calls, and it was so nice. It was like my phone's not, and my daughter would be like, Daddy, your phone is not ringing. And I was like, my gosh, it's not ringing. Because
Yeah.
you really couldn't. There was no opportunity to make money. No one was trying to make money.
Yeah, it was just interesting to stand still.
So if I had to guess, I would say that if I had to make a prediction, a vision, what might weigh heavily on the trend would be technology and video. Like we aren't doing live music and we aren't doing live meetings and things like that. So we may get a lot more streaming and things like a lot more entertaining.
Look at Zoom. I mean, Zoom has shot through the stock has gone up.
Yeah.
And virtual reality
ridiculous.
has always been there, but now Facebook and like Apple or two of the major players, I think it's Facebook and Apple, don't quote me, have goals already. They're putting these glasses together by in 2 years. Basically, our phones are going to be gone, and we're going to be wearing glasses and projecting screens and stuff like that. And that's going to help us be at a distance and communicate with each other.
I see that.
But it's super weird. But I think this decade has that coming.
I kind of agree with you there. I think as much as they'll stress that, it'll just be like a commonality to just understand that I got to be a little bit farther away when it comes to certain things. I don't know. And
the creativity that will spur up inside of that space, I'm sure it will. I'm sure art will. Whatever, like music videos that are maybe virtual instead of just a screen. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I think that would be that would kind of be the tone for it.
Yeah.
If I had to guess.
Yet to be seen. And it's incredible to think about when we are like 2020, when we talk about February or March, you're like, wait, how many years ago was that? Right? How long ago was that? And really, you can actually start looking back and you piece together where you were each month, and you're like, oh shoot, we're not even. I mean, we're in September. We're getting closer to the end of the year, but we're still not right there. We still got 3 months left, And it's interesting. I think it's fascinating. What a very unique psychological test it has been for mankind in regards to what we do.
We went through 2008 and the crash of 2008, and we lost hundreds of millions of dollars in our portfolio. But it was nothing compared to this because that was just money. It was a psychological toll.
You're right.
To sit at your house and be alone with your kids and just homeschooling them and just
good Lord.
Yeah. And with it, I think for a lot of people, we've discussed a little bit. We work with the centers here in Ocala, and a lot of the backdrop of some of the negative things that have come from not just having or contracted the virus, but the onset of the anxieties and the pressures that come along with like we said, the financial and everything shutting down. It's interesting too because I think that's where our first part of the conversation was when it's like even holidays, it's hard to look forward to because there's this like weird. That's part of the mental process that has affected a lot of people. That's been so tough to, even having kids. There's a moment there, and I'm like, well, all right. You start thinking about the future, like I don't know where we're gonna be. It's hard to even think about where we would be 4 months from the time of
anything.
It's challenging. My daughter's not in school. I mean, she's actually being homeschooled through the school, but she's doing it virtually just because we don't want to put her back. But it's challenging. It's And
speaking of, I haven't had a chance to talk to really anybody about this, but we've been reading it that this past week that the online learning in Miami-Dade County had been cyber attacked. It had been hacked. They've been having issues with it. Well, today they apprehended who it was. It was a 16-year-old kid who was having some fun.
Yes.
And,
sorry.
And I'm thinking at the end of I was thinking like maybe this has probably like some high school kid written on it. A 16-year-old kid who was basically murkying the waters there with all this online stuff that they were trying to do. Well, he found a way to infiltrate and hack it and make it go nuts. People weren't able to log in and so forth.
Oh my gosh.
And at the end of the day, I'm thinking to myself, when I was a kid, I wasn't that great in school, and that's because a lot of the times I was working harder to step around the landmine of actually doing the homework rather than just putting the work in to do the homework.
Half as much time.
And I'm thinking this kid's doing the same thing, but in a whole technological level.
The government should probably hire this kid.
I think they might. I think that's one of those things. Like,
he's going to get a contract out of it.
Like I see this new Disney movie coming up with this kid being the.
That was an old movie. It was one of Matthew Broderick's first movies. I think it was War Games.
War Games.
War Games.
Man,
and he did that and
that
shorted it
it
out.
Yeah. Was that before or after Ferris Bueller?
I think it was
before.
It was the first.
Ferris
Matthew
Bueller
Broderick,
came after.
like,
Yeah,
thing
and that's
I
what
know
made
about.
Ferris Bueller cool because you're like, well, this guy can take her around with anything. He's going to make
skip school.
Well,
Yeah,
you like to
let him go to a
That
Cubs game. He's got a job for the government with technology and cyber attacks and stuff.
Yeah, that was awesome.
But
That was awesome.
But it is
had a great
interesting.
career, though, too.
He has. And I was going to say too, with movie theaters and stuff, we're starting to see more trailers come out for the expectations of releases this fall for certain movies. And as movie theaters are opening up now, they released. It was supposed to be in April for the new James Bond movie, but they released the trailer that's going to be now having the movie come out in November. And man, I was geeking up with it. It looks
but
good.
Also, speaking of trends, so now some movies that were coming out, now you can just $20 on Amazon.
Yeah.
And and like my daughter was kind of like, that's too much to watch a movie. I'm like, what if we went to the movie theater? We'd be spending more than $20.
Spend 26.
Yeah, I mean, granted, it's a different experience, but so I'm talking, of course, about Bill and
they've
Ted's
always had that.
Whoa, totally.
new Bill and
It's
Ted's.
nice to at least be able. I miss going to the movies.
Yeah.
I mean, that's something I did with my kids. We miss going to the movies.
Yeah.
Getting the popcorn, the candy.
When you have kids, it's good to find any reason to get up and get out and
Right.
have an activity that's focused,
Right.
that isn't in your
Right.
house. Any activity.
And by the way, I heard that Bill and Ted movie is actually really good.
I'm so excited about it, to be honest.
They actually said if there's a movie right now that society needs here in the United States to have as a feel-good, just relaxed kind of movie, that's it.
Yeah. I mean, it's really Keanu Reeves' prime acting style, right? It's really his primary, primary acting style.
Isn't The Matrix his prime acting style?
Nah, this is it. This is what he's made of.
And they had on, I don't know what channel it was, but they've had on the marathon of the older Bill and Ted's. And it's neat to see where he came from and what he's done and then doing that movie
I
now.
completely spotted him in the first one. I was like, that guy right there. He was just a kid, but he is special, to look at. And I'm pretty sure Wayne's World is just a takeoff. Right? Like Bill and Ted came out first, and I was like, and it wasn't that big. If you you may not be old enough to really.
No,
but I am.
It wasn't. It was there.
First run, it was this little trash movie.
Yes.
And then Wayne's World happened like a year or two later, and I was like, they're taking off of Bill and Ted.
There was a little handoff there. And at the same time too, what made a little bit, I think, Bill and Ted relevant, there was a cartoon for a while.
Oh, shush. I didn't know that.
Yeah, there was a little cartoon for a while. I remember watching that quite a bit.
That sounds familiar.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was fun. It's very fun. And I'm looking forward to seeing that. So I'm speaking, of course, about Bill and Ted, my cultured self.
And that's
I'll be happy when we can actually go back to a movie and watch a movie.
Yeah, which they're opening now. They are, and they've got their protocols and everything, but they're not. They're just playing some of the older movies. I think the one that's
theater, they're playing fun stuff though.
Yeah, which is good.
Jaws,
Yeah.
They're great.
It's crazy nonetheless.
But one thing now, more than ever, one thing we are into is pets. And I think that I've heard about different humane societies emptying out, meaning people are adopting
they've done really well.
Because they're like, hey, I need a dog at home or a cat or whatever.
That's good.
So
I didn't hear that.
That's the one positive, right? And so we're doing a big pet thing, not next month, but the following month. But we're starting to recruit, basically send us in pictures of your pets and stuff like that. So we're going to do some fun things with that. So
That's
if you're
good.
listening to this, editor at ocalamagazine.com,
If you can't go out, you
email
can't do
pictures of your
anything.
pets.
Get a friend. Bring a friend home.
Yeah.
No,
so it's going to be a really fun pet fest sort of thing.
Well, we had on County Commission Michelle Stone yesterday, District 5, and she talked a little bit about that. The Humane Center did really, really well. They adopted 256 animals, and then they had a list of other ones that were able to get transferred and stuff, and they've done really, really well.
Pretty neat, yeah.
And it's been that same idea that's for that little bit of companionship and something to look forward to.
Yeah,
as
go
your
walk your
pet.
dog is an activity. We need more activities.
Yes,
Taking the garbage out isn't enough.
Exactly, it gets you out walking the dog, and you can still social distance and wave. It's funny, and that's what it is. I've got a cat at home. The only thing I don't look forward to is how much that darn thing pukes. What's with cats and puke?
They lick their fur in.
They lick their fur. They get the hairballs.
They gotta get it back out.
There's nothing. There's nothing.
The cat?
It's what they do.
It's called hairball. That's exactly why I don't want a cat.
Yeah,
It's okay though. It's usually pretty easy to pick up.
Yeah.
It's not it's not like a.
It's just that sound at 3 a.m, and you know he's not going to the tile.
Yeah.
Yeah, ridiculous.
On that cat on Shrek.
That is gross.
On that
real.
note, we've come to the top of the 11 o'clock hour as Ocala Magazine. Thank you guys for coming in. Had a little fun to finish out the week. You got it.
Get out, get that arts issue. It's got some
beautiful.
great editorial content in it too.
Absolutely. As that'll do it for AM Ocala Live. Stay tuned. As we say, up next is our Conservative Watch Hour with Annie Marie Delgado and co-host Ann Vandersteel. And we'll be seeing you next week. And until then, goodbye.
Everybody's looking forward to the weekend. Partying, 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 partying. Fun, 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 fun. Looking forward to the weekend. Friday, Friday. Gotta get down on Friday. Everybody's looking forward to the weekend. Weekend. Friday, Friday. Get down Friday, Friday. Getting down on Friday. Everybody's looking forward to the weekend. Partying, 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 partying. Fun, 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 fun. Looking forward to the weekend. Friday, Friday. Gotta get down on Friday. Everybody's looking forward to the weekend. Weekend. Friday, Friday. Getting down on to the weekend. We gonna get down Friday, Friday. Getting down on Friday. Everybody's looking forward to the weekend. Partying, 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 partying. Fun, 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 fun. Looking forward to the weekend. Friday, Friday. Gotta get down on Friday. Everybody's looking forward to the weekend. Weekend. Friday, Friday. Getting down on Friday. Everybody's looking forward to the weekend. Partying, 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 partying. Fun, 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 fun. Looking forward to the weekend.
President Trump's chairing the latest monthly jobs report from the government just released this morning. The economy recovered about 1.4 million jobs last month, down slightly from July's 1.8 million, but slightly higher than what most economists predicted. And the jobless rate dropped from 10.2% to 8.4%. President Trump tweeting, "The numbers are great and better than expected." Senior economist at Bankrate.com, Mark Hamrick, notes, however,
13.6 million persons are still listed as unemployed this Labor Day, so a substantial number of Americans still have little to celebrate about the status of the workforce.
he was speaking to CBS. Reports are a man wanted for killing a pro-Trump activist in Portland, Oregon last Saturday was killed last night by a federal fugitive task force as they tried to arrest him near Olympia, Washington. And this is USA Radio News.
Balance of Nature's fruits and vegetables in a capsule, changing the world one life at a time.
Balance of nature, it's the greatest thing in the world. I can't imagine where I would be without it. You know, I feel 20 years old again, and I want to continue to stay in shape. I understand the oversaturation in the market and the resulting cynicism that people have, but balance of nature works for anybody and everybody. And as much as it's a today product, it's a product for the future for me. I am the most satisfied customer in the world. I don't know what I would do without it.
Don't wait to see what getting over 10 servings of whole fruits and vegetables every day can do for you. Right now, Balance of Nature is offering free shipping and 35% off on any new preferred order. Start your journey to better health today by calling 1-800-2468-751 or by going to balanceofnature.com. Again, that's balanceofnature.com. And make sure to receive this special radio offer by using discount code USA.
Democrats in the Trump administration take a key step towards avoiding a government shutdown later this month. Aides from both